everyone. This is your host, Red, and my partner, Lori, and this is the Marketing Material Handling Webcast. Lori, who's our guest for today?
Well, Red, I get to talk about Lauren Zach. So Lauren Zach is the Director of Account Development at Concept, and she started her sales and marketing career as a business development manager, exclusively working with material handling clients. So I'm really excited about that because I feel like we're few and far in between knowing about material handling. Today, she's responsible for building business development strategy, both internally at Concept as well as its portfolio of over 100 partners. So, Lauren, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit more about Concept and how you support your partners.
Absolutely. So Concept is a sales development organization. We were founded back in 2002 on the idea of separating new business development from the sales process. And so our owner and founder was in outside sales himself. He felt like, he was responsible for finding his own leads, nurturing the leads, getting them into the sales cycle, actually selling them, retaining that business, and then putting out operational fires. And as a salesperson, he found himself, really focused on that kind of end of sale area, as well as retaining that business. And he didn't have the time to prospect. He didn't have the time to develop a pipeline. And so he basically left his organization to start a company that was really founded on dedicating not only a horsepower, but process to business development. So that's how we were founded. And we really support the supply chain umbrella, where a lot of our business is inside of the material handling industry. And then outside of material handling, we also work with construction, over-the-road truck sales, as well as logistics and transportation companies. But we like to think that we have a hand in helping companies that move product and basically allow for our supply chain to work every day.
Was that your introduction to the material handling industry?
It was, yep. So I started as a business development manager. Now at Concept, those folks are called the sales development reps. But my job was a taxing one. And I think anybody that's been in business development can understand that. I was making cold calls, 80 to 100 a day for our partners in the material handling space. So I worked for 2 forklift dealers. And I was responsible for finding leads for new, used, rental, service parts, warehouse allied projects. And so it really helped kind of catapult me into the industry to get a good understanding of really all of the pieces of equipment and services that are entailed in making a warehouse, distribution center, or a manufacturing facility work.
And now you're the Director of Account Development.
Yeah.
Is this can you explain to us what this position is and what this does too?
Sure. Yep. So after I was in the business development role, I kind of naturally moved into account management. I had, as a business development manager at the time, I had a minimal amount of contacts with my clients that represented. So we would get on review calls and talk about, target accounts and things of that nature. And I really found a passion for working directly with the customer. So I moved into an account management position. And then over time, I ended up leading our whole operational team for sales development ops, and then jumped over to what I call the dark side of sales. So now I'm responsible for helping bring on key partners, and then helping to retain and expand share of wallet with some of our current and longstanding partners and networks. And a lot of who I'm talking with are either OEMs or dealer networks or dealers. And so I can find myself one day and with a marketing manager at maybe a small dealer that carries lots of different brands. And sometimes I'll be working with dealer development at an OEM or corporate marketing. And so it's been really awesome to kind of get to understand journey and what is success at every level in every type of organization that we support.
And you do, I would think, how we met. So just a disclaimer, Lauren works with us too. That's how we suggested to have her as a guest, because they do good work for us. But you're the one that initially was contacting us. So I would Does your position right now require you to find customers?
Well, yes and no. So I work with really key accounts,
Uh-huh.
and there are some different strategies that we have in attracting key account business. A little bit different maybe than some business that's very much welcomed, but that is more so given to our other salespeople or to our marketing team. So
Mhm.
right now I'm responsible for kind of going out and building relationships with key accounts inside of the industries that I play in. And then from there, I'm basically trying to land and expand. So if I might be working with an OEM, I'm going to try to find contacts in their dealer network and then vice versa. But I also help our team as qualified inbound leads are coming in. Sometimes those are routed to me. Sometimes they're routed to other members of our sales team. So I am responsible for finding some new business, but I'm also responsible for kind of getting leads post-qualification and then bringing those to a close.
Mm-hmm. Lauren, what would you say are traits that people should look for the new business development rep? I don't think it's a new concept, but I think that a lot of dealerships have a different idea of what new business development means, how to do it, who should do it, whose umbrella it should be under. So it typically starts under sales. Here at ProLift, it's under marketing now. But there's got to be a trend. You're working with a lot of people that are doing those outbound calls. So what stands out for you?
That's a great question. And I wish I had a really direct answer for you, Lori, but I don't. Really, it's about finding someone that's a self-starter, finding someone that's hungry to basically build relationships, and people that are hungry to have an organic chat, to learn more, and they're actually genuine in their approach are people that are really great in a business development role. I can tell you our sales development reps are from a lot of different backgrounds. Some have phone experience where they might have been working for customer service or collections, and we have some bad habits and some kind of tweaks of mindset to do when they come aboard at Concept. And then we also have people that were in outside sales that were sick of driving around and that wanted to maybe stay home with their families, and they basically have to, again, kind of unlearn some things to really focus on the key skills of a business development manager or a sales development rep. So I'd say, don't necessarily worry so much about background or experience. Mm-hmm. There's a process that can be built, but you really can't naturally make someone motivated. So that's something that you just have to look for as, a key trait. I will say, the SDR position is hard to hire for. So you need to make sure that the metrics that you're holding those SDRs accountable to are obtainable. And that's something that we run into a lot, even as an outsourced partner. Sales development is not closing business.
Right.
Sales development is finding key decision makers, uncovering intelligence, nurturing relationships, and then setting up for an expert to talk about how those products or services fit the needs and challenges that were uncovered by the SDR. And I think a lot of people, as they look internally, or as a lot of people as they outsource, they unfortunately think business development is about closing business, but that person really shouldn't have the expectation of closing business. They should be responsible for one part of the journey along the way. So, kind of setting those people up for success is a good motivator. And we're really lucky right now. Our tenure of our SDRs on average is about 3.2 years. And the industry average right now is about 1.5. So you can't expect to hold on to those people forever. You have to give them other opportunities to grow in your business, or allow for them to think of this SDR position as a good stepping stone into sales. And that's what I did. And while mine wasn't planned in that way, it really will allow anybody that doesn't have sales experience to better understand what it takes to actually get in front of someone and then close the deal.
I have a confusion that I need to be clarified. So I'm hearing sales development and new business development. Are these two different things, or is this one thing?
We consider them to be one thing. And,
Okay.
I think in the world of marketing, God, there's like 15 million definitions to lead and top of funnel and
It's
all
so
these,
true.
little
Well,
pieces of, yeah.
which was leading to my next question is prospecting now too.
Yes.
Kind of like what Lori asked before was, is this supposed to be a sales function or a marketing function, like prospecting, like in your world, or how you define it, Lauren? How in my, it's mostly sales if we're talking about prospecting, because as a sales rep, and I've been a sales rep myself too, we are paid to find new customers. So I think it's more of a sales function, prospecting. But give us your thoughts, Lauren.
Yeah, so I think that's a great question, and it's different from organization to organization. But I would actually say that business development or sales development, since they're interchangeable, it's actually the connection between marketing and sales. And so if we're talking about prospecting from a cold perspective, where we've never uncovered the decision maker, we've never talked to them before, we've really had no dialogue or no interest, that is inherently more of a sales function, that you're reaching out with them and that you're trying to kind of warm that up. Now, on the flip side of things, when you look at it being more of a marketing function, marketing is bringing in leads from, 10 channels at least.
Right.
The website, your social media, your trade shows, et cetera, et cetera. Those leads in some way need to be drugged down the sales funnel from top of funnel leads where their names attached to companies, and then actually warm up that interest and then get to them to the point where they're ready to talk about actually starting a relationship. And so in that function, I would say it's more of a marketing role.
Mm-hmm.
So it really depends from company to company, but I'd say if any answer I could give you is it's actually a better connector than it is assigned to one department.
I love the word connector. I tell my team that all the time. You are the connectors. Here's the customer, and here's like the ProLift specialist, and you are the connector in between.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I kind of. So it's in between. If you're talking about Concepts Way, it's in between. But in Lauren's company, they are under marketing. So I guess that will just be it like you said, depends on how it was defined in the company. So I have some clarity there now. I just, to me, I want that defined, because if not, for example, in our case, if it's not defined who's responsible, it's hard to get accountability, because
Absolutely.
is he responsible or am I responsible? Who? We don't know. So who's accountable now, right?
So with us, I think lead generation, which is really part of this new business development, it's always been a part of us, which has always fallen under marketing. I can't imagine marketing not really being heavy on the lead generation process. And I think that there's a part of the sales. So really, like Lauren's founder, his example of, as a good salesperson, you earn several customers. So naturally, your ability to prospect goes down, and that shouldn't be considered a negative thing. So I often look at things and say, okay, there's probably 5 different roles that can help us do this lead generation piece. But realistically, who can do it a little bit better or a little bit more? Who really has the opportunity to do that? And for us, that boils down to new business development and customer experience reps.
So Lori, can I interview you even if you're not the guest? Just one question. So in ProLift, the reps are not expected to find new business. Are they just the closers in your where marketing will cook everything, and when it's about to be closed or served, you give it to the rep? Or do you have like mandates to the rep that they should also be finding their customers?
So I would say that every sales rep has a new business or conquest percentage goal. But how they get to that isn't necessarily broken down to the rep got it versus it was an incoming marketing lead. Okay, so the goal is just to get it. And really, while marketing can provide the opportunities, it's really the rep that then steps in with that expertise to do the closing, right? So our job is to provide the really strong opportunities nurtured at the right times, and they're closing, and they should totally get credit for that. So I would just say that they're not split up, but yes, we talk about new business. It's never going to go away on the goals. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's a
Okay.
great point, Lori. And I think, culturally, some organizations are kind of not allowing for salespeople to feel like they had an equal part in closing if it happened to come from marketing or if it happened to
Right.
come from business development. And really, I think when you look at the journey of a lead, most people chart out that journey as being a super linear process. Lead comes in, it's handed to the marketing team, it's handed to the sales development or business development team, it's handed to the rep, and it's closed. And they want it to be quick and they want it to be straightforward. And the reality is that most leads don't function in that manner. Most leads have a journey that is super squiggly, and sometimes it goes forwards and sometimes it goes backwards.
Yeah.
Decision makers change, needs change,
Correct.
competition's changing. And so it should be looking at, I think, the attribution of each kind of facet in that machine to say, all right, we saw marketing did this. We saw maybe branding is even kind of like a separate part of marketing did that. The sales team did this. The service team kept that customer. And so they should have that equal say. So I think that journey is something to chart out. And I would say, Red, to you, as you talked about prospecting and it not necessarily being 100% clear as to whose responsibility is, I would encourage anyone that's kind of faced with that issue to take it outside of the box and just say, if we in a perfect world could figure out how to prospect in a way that's repeatable and scalable, how would we do it? And then assign the responsibility thereafter. So,
it's good advice.
Kind of that what we call like soup to nuts sales, that's not necessarily really doable for anybody today, because salespeople are responsible for hundreds of accounts and then for meeting their sales goals and then for retaining that business and helping with operational needs. And so I think it's about, really just defining the requirements and responsibilities of each part of that process. And that should happen outside of CRM first, but kind of doing that as a team, I think, brings everybody together and makes those expectations more clear. And then there's less, well, marketing wants me to do this, or you're not my boss, I won't update this lead, that type of mentality.
Well, that lead is for you. That lead is for you, so you should be updating that. But I guess I'm coming from the more traditional way of selling and prospecting, because when I was selling bakery products back in the day. And when I drive around and I see bakery fat, like those shortening tins outside the building, I would think, oh, that's a bakery ingredient. Let me go inside and talk to that guy. I'm thinking for forklifts, people drive around when they see a pallet, especially in pre-COVID. They drive around, they see a pallet like outside. Oh, they should have a forklift because they have loads of pallets there. I can just knock on the door. That traditionally is the way of cold calling, prospecting, right?
And I think they should do that. I'm not saying they shouldn't. I mean, like in a systemic way, it should be defined. But if they're out there and they happen to see a neighbor or drive by a place with a lot of dock doors, what I would envision being the best thing to do is go in and try to get a card. When you do get a card, or if you don't, call up your marketing team, send an email to your marketing or your sales development team and say, hey, I drove by here. I think there's good opportunity. So they're handing it off, but I think they still need to kind of feel like they're a hunter for their own, ego, for lack of a better term, but also
I think it happens naturally. Like, right, it happens naturally. I don't know that you ever stop doing it, but the key is, do I really have time to nurture it in the same way that marketing might, who is a little bit more in the office, a little bit more connected to email, to the phone. I think that's difficult for a sales rep.
I'd love
And
to
I was
ask
gonna
you
say,
guys.
yeah.
Oh, sorry, Red. Go ahead.
Sorry, excuse me. I was gonna say that too. That suggestion that you said, because now that we're more becoming more clear on who's really needs to be more involved in this, giving that heads up to marketing or the new business development, saying, "Hey, Lori's Lori, I saw this big warehouse
Right.
being built there. Why don't you guys prospect it?" So that kind of like, because if we're gonna ask reps, you still have to knock on 5 doors every day, and but we're saying right now that they're too busy to do that. Might as well not give them that mandate of knocking on 5 doors, because that will become not really their job. It will be the job, the new business development. Then at least that heads up or kind of like teamwork. This is going to end up in my sales anyway. So having that kind
Yeah,
of attitude,
exactly.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think, a really great thing that we see a lot of our partners do is have the salespeople that receive leads from concept. Actually, they're responsible for giving anywhere from 5 to 20 accounts to our team to call and focus on. So being an outsourced partner, we're not driving around. We don't have, and our customers many times don't have a CRM chock full of information to know where to fish, and we want to fish where the fish are. So if these salespeople know where they should get their foot in the door, they have a target account, or they know the incumbent's been in there for 20 years, that's an account that you should get into the hands of your business development team. And so a lot of times sales managers will say, all right, your responsibility in this is updating the leads that you get, but another responsibility is fueling the front end of it. So that's a great way to kind of get that teamwork aspect. And then, you're working in tandem. You get in where a salesperson really wants to get in. Wow, they really want to work with marketing and business development now.
And I think we should like tell that to our people. We will
Oh,
be, because
yeah.
like I said, we're working with Lauren, and is that if I'm really smart, all reps are smart. If I'm really smart, I'm gonna have concept do the hard work for me. I'm
Yes.
gonna give them
Absolutely.
that. Here you go. Get me to the right person, rather
Yes.
than me trying to, like I said, with ego. I want to be the one penetrating this account, but who cares? You get the commission, right? Just give
Yeah.
it to concept, let them cook it, give it to you when you're about to close. I think
We
that's a
had a
good
first
strategy.
time
Yeah.
thing come up this week, actually, with one of our partners that's been with us for, I think, about 14 years. One of their lead salespeople, who's been with us a long time as well, he wanted to do a specific campaign, and he said, take it out of my salary. I want this SDR working with me on this specific subset of accounts for 3 months. And that's a first for me to ever hear the salesperson say, take away that
Yeah.
money. But they understand that the impact of finding something and opening the door. And we were talking about nurturing, and that's something that I think a lot of organizations are not focusing enough on. We spend a lot of money in marketing to get leads in, to get
Yes.
website traffic, to get people to click on things and LinkedIn. And then once it comes in and a salesperson either qualifies it or disqualifies it, which happens a lot of times quicker than it should, then that lead just kind of sits there. And
Mhm.
if it's not being nurtured either through business development or email, or the rep's not responsible for doing it, then we're basically just minimizing the return on investment from marketing in the first place. So I think a lot of companies should be less focused on like paid advertising and more focused on doing something with what they've already bought. And that nurturing
Good
piece is what I
advice.
was going to ask too. I was going to say, do you guys know on average how many times it takes to qualify a lead?
Okay, I'm going to say 12.
What's the question again? Was it a percentage you said?
How many touches does it take to actually qualify a lead on average?
Qualifying a lead in our world is uh, moving it into an opportunity. Is that your question or no?
Mhm.
Getting a proper how many times? So
How many
if
times?
if a lead is already given to me and I'm a rep, How many times do I call that customer to make it into an opportunity? That's the question. I would think on average, I would think three.
So I'm actually meaning when a lead comes into the website or when we find a decision maker that has some interest, how many touch points is it? And Lori's a little closer. It's 16.
Oh, it's close.
Oh,
So
okay.
I said
it's a
12.
mix of calls, it's a mix of emails, voicemails, social posts or touches, excuse me. I can't think of a salesperson, even the best one, that is touching a lead 16 times.
Right.
No.
And that is something that I think if we're setting the expectation for them to qualify the lead, and we know that's not reasonable to ask of them, then we're essentially setting them up for failure. And then they're actually setting ourselves up for failure because we spent money on it. And then we said, now it's your responsibility, goodbye. And then when it doesn't get returned as a win, everybody's upset and everybody loses. And so, maybe that's a mix of salesperson and marketing and business development, or maybe it lives all within one group and you can figure that out through charting the journey. But 16 touches, that's a lot of time and investment. And you have to be organized and you have to remember what you talked about the time before and things of that nature.
So what would you, for people that for now are not having your kind of service, what can you suggest they do to kind of like not waste these leads?
The first thing I would take a look at is maybe any past leads that have come in within the last, 18 to 24 months. And I would take inventory of everything that you've had from marketing or from trade shows, and I'd get them into a CRM system, something that you can organize them, dedupe and scrub them. And then the next thing that you should do is try to prioritize those leads. And the best way to prioritize leads is by segmentation. So I would look and say, what industries are these leads in? What is the revenue size of these companies? Where are they located? Things of that nature. And if you don't have that information, there's lots of different tools out there that you can get it pretty inexpensively. And it's not like 100% match. If you take your data set and try to add, it's never going to be like a complete clean list that you get. But you could probably get about 70 to 75% of that data appended with that information. And then say, okay, let's look at our current customer profile, our ICP, our ideal customer profile. It's within these industries. It's within the size of company. It's within this specific territory or metro market. And now let's take a look at our prospects and prioritize based on what we've learned. So where do we know we could be successful? Yeah, we know you could probably service everybody on that list, but you can't market and spend your time on everyone, or at least you're taking your first step in it. So I'd say getting your leads into one place, cleaning them up, trying to put more data on that name or on that account, segment it to match your ideal customer profile. And then you need to say, what type of activity am I going to basically inspire with these accounts? Maybe the top tier ones, we focus on one-to-one communication. So we set up maybe some personalized emails. We have a business development rep call them, or someone in marketing or someone in sales call them, put a real focus on them. And then for the rest of the pool, I would say, how do we speak to a larger audience or one-to-many communication? And then I'd come up with some different email campaigns. I'd come up with maybe some ways to educate them, promotions, things of that nature. So you just kind of have to split it into priority. Who deserves one-to-one communication? Who deserves one-to-many communication? And the hope is that you could talk one-to-one to everybody, but that's super expensive. And until you prove concept, it's just not going to be reasonable.
Well, because you said 16 touches, right? So like these will be phone calls, emails, because 16 is a lot, I would think. And it's like on a span of what, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. So I guess it will be more of a nurture marketing, because you cannot be just calling every customer every time.
Absolutely.
For 16 times, because that's the average, right? I'll call you 16 times So, so calling, emailing is what's you're
Yeah,
suggesting, nurture
you'll
marketing.
work yourself out of a deal real fast if you're calling them 16 times in 2 weeks. I'd say
Yeah.
maybe 16 times over a 90-day period is pretty reasonable. And when you think about the way that you can do these touches, it doesn't have to be a touch every other day or every few days. What you could do is I call you, Red, you don't pick up, I leave you a short voicemail, and I follow up with an email. Red, I sent you an email, you don't respond. I go on LinkedIn and I send you a message there. Or I tag you in a post, or I send you an article that you think might be interesting. And I think a lot of times we forget that these prospects are people. They don't want to be sold to every day. You have to think about what challenges is this persona faced with, and how can I help them solve those challenges, and how can I make them the hero. And so a lot of times when I'm nurturing someone and I'm kind of feeling like, oh man, they're probably sick of me, I might say, here's a great study I found on this, marketing or sales development initiative. And I don't know if you're doing this internally or not, but I thought it might be helpful. Just wanted to send it to you. And
And that's why
say,
Lori's team and our team too. We've been making these blogs and articles for our sales team to
Right.
utilize, because that's a touch. If I'm connected
Yes.
with a prospect on LinkedIn, and every week I post a blog, that's one touch if he sees it. But at least our reps have some sort of a tool to kind of like touch.
Absolutely. I think that's so important, especially today with email fatigue in this mid to post pandemic life. People are sick of getting emails, but they're all over LinkedIn. They're all over social media. So I think that's a great idea. And I'll give you guys in the audience this tip that is so proven, but it's really painful to do as a business development person. And it's the last tip of the last touch, of your sales development 16 touch cadence. It's called the breakup. Okay. And it feels very awkward to write, and you feel like you're maybe going to offend someone, maybe not. But after you've reached out to somebody and you've tried different channels and you haven't been too aggressive, but you've been the right amount of persistence, you send them an email that says, hey, I've reached out to you several times in the last few months. Based on what my impression of our past conversations, or based on the business that you're in, I really hope to be a resource to you and just explore how we might be able to help each other. If it's not a priority for you, that's not an issue. I don't want to be a pest. Could you just let me know kind of where we fall, and maybe give them one, two, or three as to respond with not interested, it's not the right time, or it doesn't seem like it'd be a good fit, or whatever it might be. And you're basically saying, I'm closing up the book. I've tried every way I can to get in contact with you. It's clear that you don't want to be in business or, find a partnership together. That's okay. But I don't want to waste my time if you're not interested in kind of seeing what's out there to improve your business. And it's kind of like a guilt trip, but it works because people say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I've been so busy. Yes, I do want to talk. Or I've been so busy. Reach out to me at this time. There is a program I want to talk about. Or they won't respond. And then you just have to take them out, and you have to stop spinning your wheels for a few months. And it doesn't mean you're never going to prospect them again, but it means you need to take a break and focus on the other 1,000 accounts out there that you need to get your foot in the door with. So the breakup email, there's lots of different templates online.
My first time hearing that. It's actually pretty cool. Do you have stats on that? How many come back say, hey, I want to work with you?
Because I know I've sent about 2 or 3 in the last maybe 2 weeks, and I got 2 of them back.
It's
So,
like it's the what do you call this? When you don't have, it's like when you can't have it, then you go chase it.
You want it.
I guess that's the psychology of it.
It is, yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of saying like, listen, I wasn't trying to do anything that you didn't want to do. I'm not trying to sell you something you don't need. I was just trying to help you. And then it's like an aha moment. Man, they could be a resource to me.
That's good advice, Lauren.
Thanks.
That is good. Like we got some free tips, Lori. Do you have any more questions for our guest, Lori?
No, I feel like Lauren answered so many things, but I think my favorite part is just knowing about the 16 touches, that new business development on average is 1.5 years. That's really important for people to know. I say that there's no gray area in someone that can do this role, especially when it comes to phone prospecting. People either take to it or they don't. Sometimes they can sound really great even through training, and the moment you get them on the phone, they're literally sweating, down the side. It's just, pretty quickly if it's something that you're going to do well in. So I guess if I gave some advice, one thing that I've learned is I always start an interview on the phone. I'll do a quick 30-minute call to review their resume because I want to hear how they are on the phone. I learned very quickly that when I only did in-person interviews, I typically did not pick the right person. And then, the second piece, Lauren touched on this, is that I don't think I've ever hired anybody that did new business, but it was somebody in customer service, someone in collections, as she's talked about. It's a really different thing to prospect and research and use all these tools that marketing now has available. So I hope everybody took some good notes, or at least kind of rewinds and rewatches, because there's a lot of good stuff in here that I think breaks the perception of what new business development is and who should be doing it.
Well, I had a couple tips and tricks prepared for you guys if you want me to leave you with a few
that would be great.
Let's hear that.
So the first one is something I mentioned earlier, but just a reminder, if you're a marketer, to take a look at what you're doing in the middle of your funnel. Worry less for a minute about what you're bringing in, worry less about what sales is doing, and figure out how you're going to make the most of the investment that you already brought in. The next thing I would encourage marketers and sales leadership to think about is holding salespeople to the same standards of marketing in terms of the return on investment. And I think a really great way to think about that is if you actually compare your salespeople to your service people. So your service people are billed by the hour. They're responsible for having a certain percentage of their time that they're actually working, where they're charging the customer, and then a certain percentage of the time where they're in between meetings or in between service jobs. And so they're held to a productivity standard, but salespeople aren't. And so I would encourage for the sales leadership to think about their salespeople in that way. And I'd also encourage them to think about how much money is being kind of lost, opportunity is being lost by salespeople not nurturing and not following up on leads as they are expected to. And so every time a lead is ignored, every time a lead isn't nurtured properly, or that they don't give that lead back to marketing, essentially the cost of that salesperson should go up because it's a missed opportunity that was brought to the table. So I'd encourage, leadership to think of it that way. And then the last thing that I will say is just about the different metrics for each group. Folks working in branding or on the website, they should be responsible for driving awareness, for website traffic, building a social following. They shouldn't be responsible for closed business. Marketing in the same way. They should be driving anonymous traffic to actually leads, like first, last names and companies. And then they should be responsible for converting those leads into either marketing qualified or sales qualified leads. Ignore the vanity metrics, open rates, click-through rates. That's just all a facade unless it's actually leading towards conversion. And then for your biz dev or your inside sales team or an outsourced partner, lead qualification and opportunity generation, those are pretty simple. But building a pipeline is the most important part. So identifying next purchase timeframes. When are they buying? When are they renting? When are they budgeting? When are they replacing batteries? All of those different timeframes should be able to show a pipeline and help sales leadership and forecasting. And then lastly, holding salespeople to what they already get paid on, which is closed business, but opportunity updates and deal updates along the way. I think it's really important just to kind of take a look at those metrics and make sure that everyone's set up for success, and then allow for the anomalies to be just that, and don't manage to those one-off instances. Manage to what you think should be the best process from start to finish.
I think that's pure gold.
Yeah, good
You
tips.
basically
Thanks.
defined all the questions that I was asking. You defined who should be doing this.
Yeah.
And if you listen to this, you're really needing that extra new business development person, Lori, like what you're saying, like what you guys are doing. There's just sales, there's salespeople, there's marketing for like lead generation, and then there's new business component. And I thought that was good. I'm glad that we recorded this so I can watch this again and I can show this to our sales managers and see. Let us have this definition. What should one be doing? Because if there's no one, no, it's not defined. There's no accountability. So I thought
Absolutely.
that was great, Lori. What do you
Well,
think?
thank you.
No, I think we just need to know where to find Lauren.
Yeah.
Well, you could certainly find me on our website, up on the screen right now, conceptltd.com. You can also email me. My email address is lzak@conceptltd.com. I'm on LinkedIn, and then I'm also going to be presenting at the Mahita Annual Convention this year in Austin. It's just in a couple months here in August, and I'll be talking about improving CRM adoption. And a lot of what we've talked about today also lives in CRM. And so there's this barrier of technology and this fear of technology. And so I'll be speaking on that in a kind of a TED Talk series at that convention. But I'd encourage anybody, even if they just want to have a conversation, even if they don't want to outsource and they want to talk about how to improve their internal team, we do trainings. I can give you some tips, tricks, and advice that we didn't talk about today. But Lori and Red, thank you guys so much for having me. It was a real pleasure.
Same.
Oh, thank you. So, Lori, are we going to end this nice show with Lauren?
I think so. It's time.
Okay, we'll see you guys in the next podcast.